So I was doing this exercise with this woman who is she might be in her 90s now. So she was like a wise elder in the community. And then there were two other people co-leading the workshop. And all three of them had their hands on me and were talking to me in a gentle voice, telling me to drop and relax and release. And
Mm,
like somebody had their hands on this really gorgeous, tall man, Pilates teacher. I remember that. Had his hands on my knees and was kind of helping me sink my femurs into my hip sockets. Somebody had their hands on my shoulders and somebody had their hand on my sternum. So they were all talking me through this because my instinct was to lift and power and show how strong I was. But instead,
yeah.
they had me dropping each piece of my spine down in order to roll up. And I had this, when I think back on it now, it was like coming through into a different world and seeing like, I mean, I get emotional talking about it. It was such a difference that somebody taught me to drop and relax. And then I felt my spine
Mm.
move naturally.
What's up, you beautiful beasts? I'm Katie. I'm on a mission to help humans become their favorite versions of themselves and to strive for overall health by healing their relationship to food and exercise, healing their relationship to their body, and most importantly, healing their relationship to themselves, all without ever having to step on a scale. I have had the privilege to talk to all kinds of different humans who have been through a plethora of experiences just being a human and existing. I believe that every single time someone shares their story, at least one person listening will learn from it, be inspired by it, and maybe, just maybe, even change the entire direction of their life. These are the stories of humans unveiling their beautiful beast. Keep listening. This is the Unveiling the Beast podcast. So can you tell me your tagline that you were telling me about in the email?
Feels so good you'll dance in your kitchen.
Please tell me about that.
Well, I'm a Pilates teacher, a master Pilates teacher. I've been teaching Pilates for 25 years, doing it myself for 32. And I came to Pilates because I had a couple car accidents. So I
Mm,
worked very hard. I became an instructor. I was good at the advanced exercises. I was very strong and I was always in pain. And the doctor who saw me after my car accident basically pushed on my arm and said, "You're fine." And I said, "Well, I'm in a lot of pain." And he was like, "Soft tissue damage, you'll have that pain your whole life. There's nothing that I can do for you. Maybe get a massage." So I got a lot of massages and I saw, the acupuncturist and I saw all kinds of great people and I felt better.
hmm
But after doing Pilates or a really hard workout or anything, dancing, I always was in pain. I had like a constant stabbing pain under my right shoulder blade, and my neck would go out so that I couldn't move my neck often. And I had a couple babies, and pushing them around in the strollers was hard. And I was always going, "Watch mommy's neck, watch mommy's neck." And one day at the kitchen sink, while I was chopping vegetables and very grumpy, I don't like being in the kitchen. I was in terrible pain. And I had this moment of clarity where I noticed where my body was in space. My feet were turned out, my knees were locked, my hip was forward against the counter, my shoulders were up by my ears, and my head was hanging forward. And I
hmm
went, "Oh, this is not great alignment. If I was in the Pilates studio, I know what I would do for an exercise."
Right.
So I had this moment of clarity when I recognized that I wasn't pulling in what I knew from my work in the Pilates studio into my daily life. And so kitchen dancing is kind of the idea of bringing better alignment, more awareness, ease, and joy into mundane tasks.
Mm.
So feeling so good that I mean, it doesn't have to be full out dancing, but just like, rolling your hips, rolling your shoulders, humming a little tune, feeling joyful in your life. And,
Yeah.
uh, and, I've been building this online business for years. And one day my teenage daughter, she was probably 12 then, took a video of me dancing in the kitchen to some like groovy, not groovy. I just showed my age by saying groovy. Some like rap or something, popular song. and I was doing some weird dance. So she videotaped me to humiliate me or embarrass me. And it got a huge response. Everybody loved it. So I started dancing in my kitchen and showing videos of that, kind of to like a shortcut to integrating better movement, ease, and joy into your everyday life.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it started.
I love that so much. Just because people are so trained to think that movement has to be hard and it has
Right.
to make you want to feel like you're dying in the gym. And it's
Yeah.
just not true. Like
Can't
find
walk to the
something.
bathroom the next morning. I
Exactly.
hear people
And
talking about that. "Ah, the workout was so great, I couldn't walk to the bathroom in the morning."
yeah, or I couldn't sit on the toilet. Leg day, hashtag. But it's like
Not true.
what I've found is like workouts or just even movement, you're supposed to feel better afterwards, not
Yeah.
like you just got hit by a truck.
Right. And traditional Western gym movements are very like linear, one muscle
Mhm.
group at a time. It's not fluid and rotational and connected through the whole system. You're not thinking about where your feet are and how that connects up through the whole system, your fascia, your nervous system. So, and
Yeah.
I think even further than that, that gym culture that we have, there's there's so many cultures where there's lots of dancing in community and singing in community, even if you're not a good dancer or not a good singer. In our culture, it seems like you have to like, I always hear people say, "Oh, I don't dance. I'm not a good dancer.
Yeah.
I can't sing. I can't sing." It's such a fundamental human thing that we should be doing in community for our bodies and our nervous systems and, our community. And we kind of think we have to be good at it. It's got to be
Yeah.
camera ready, Instagram ready. So I'm just stepping out and going, I'm older, I'm a little chubby, I'm not a great dancer, but I'll do it in
Yeah.
public.
I'll do it, I guess. But yeah, back to what you were saying about the movements. Like not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, your strength training is so good for us also, and that's
Absolutely.
not the end all be all. And
Right.
it's not that it's not going to count if you're not doing those things or if you're not, kicking your ass on a spin bike, which I'm a spin instructor and so I
Oh,
consider
really? Yeah.
like
Awesome.
or running 5 miles. Like you could go for a walk and like take in the world around you, and that still
Yeah,
counts as
absolutely.
movement and exercise.
Yeah, and if you're going to do something like a spin class or lift weights in the gym, which I'm 100% approve of anything, especially as you get older, lifting heavy weights is important.
Mhm.
But if you haven't done the alignment work first, if you're
Yeah.
doing a hard spin class and your pelvis is a little off, it's not going to feel great the next day. And you might think, oh, I'm in a lot of pain. This is good, but it might not be the right
Yeah.
kind of pain.
Yeah. Some people aren't aware of the kinetic chain and how like basically everything is connected to everything else in our bodies. So
Absolutely.
for example, I don't know if this has happened, but you could hurt your ankle and then feel pain in your shoulder
Oh,
because
absolutely.
everything is connected. And so like you said, if your hips are off slightly,
Right.
you could have foot pain the next day or a headache
Absolutely. Yeah.
or, pain in your shoulder or something.
Or just start to walk a little bit differently on your foot, which you don't even notice. But
Yeah.
6 months later, you have pain in your foot and you're thinking, where did that come from?
Yeah. And you don't notice that your normal is becoming off-centered.
Right. And pretty soon
Yeah.
your visual system and your vestibular system are trying to find neutral, and you don't recognize that you're
Yeah.
all of us are in, symmetry is not as important as balance. We
Hmm.
just need to kind of recognize, could be physiological from birth if we have, who knows what's going on with our spine. But if, as I'm getting older, you recognize that we're all kind of spinning back into the earth. So
Hmm.
whatever kind of patterns you've set up in your life, you got to kind of notice them and spiral up out of them, even if it's not something you can change completely, because it's, we all go through, we might have an injury, you might have a spinal anomaly or a fusion or a hip replacement. So
Hmm.
you can't change everything, but you can notice how it's spinning you back down into the earth.
Yeah.
What muscles do we need to help us stay balanced and even? And sometimes those smaller, deeper muscles kind of turn off if if we're counting on our big muscles.
Yeah. This is why I highly recommend to people who have the means to do so get a personal trainer who actually makes the work personal because they will find your muscle imbalances and help
Right.
you correct them so that your body is more in alignment with
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do a posture and gait analysis live in the studio and virtually, where I have an app where I can draw pictures or draw lines on your video and still shots. And
Hmm.
I find that's really powerful for people who don't recognize, they just don't recognize that their shoulders up, that one hip is lifting as they walk, and uh,
Hmm.
so many little things. I try not to overwhelm them, but one tiny shift it sets off a chain through the body. And that's why, like, I specialize in gait and walking, but
Hmm.
dancing is really just walking to music. So
Yeah.
that walking through your kitchen, you can pay attention to that one wonky toe that doesn't want to, if you're rolling off your big toe, you can pay attention to that push off, something you might be exploring in the gym, but you can just do it in, like I said, I was doing all this great work in the Pilates studio, but I wasn't integrating it into my life. So that's kind of how I help my students, whatever they're doing. I work with equestrians and athletes and, people who lift weights and older people who have had all kinds of joint replacements and still want
Yeah.
to be active and play pickleball and ski. And so if you can find just a moment in your daily life where you're activating that place that's kind of your body's trying to not use it because it doesn't rely on it. You can do it
Hmm.
in a safe place in the kitchen, hold on to your kitchen counter, push off with your big toe a few times, start to feel how that's an integral part of the way you move.
Yeah.
When you go on a long walk, you can feel if you're rolling off that big toe or using it, even if it's not very strong.
Yeah. That makes sense. I just a quick eye story of my version of the kinetic chain. My story with my own kinetic chain
Hmm.
is I had plantar fasciitis in
Oh,
both feet
no.
at the same time. And um what I thought it was from was gaining weight after my kid was born, my kid. Um and what it was actually from was cycling for 10 years without properly stretching my calves. And so it created
Probably
the,
holding your kid.
yeah, that. And then also at the beginning of 2020, I rolled my ankle and tore ligaments.
Oh
It
no.
was awful. So that kind of like
Yeah.
fast paced it. And it was so interesting that it was my right ankle, but it also sped up the plantar fasciitis in my left ankle or in my left foot. So it was
Yes, you were
like,
stabilizing with your left foot.
yeah. And it was so painful, and I had to quit teaching spin for a while because they wouldn't let me go on leave that long. I had to stop teaching Zumba, and it took me like a year to heal. Once I knew what it was
Yeah.
and I knew how to take care of it, it took a long time to heal. But that's a perfect example of like one of the things that helped me heal the most was massaging my calves with a percussion massager
Oh
to
yes.
heal my feet.
Ooh, I have one that you can hook onto the door jamb. I got this thing. I actually bought it for
Oh,
my husband, but he doesn't like it. I'll show you.
okay.
Where is it? I can't remember where it is, but it's this big contraption that hooks on the door jamb. So you can put your percussion massager down at your calf. So you don't have to hold on to it. You just lean up against
Ooh.
it. Because I
Okay, I'm
have
writing it down.
Achilles problems too. Where is it? I have so many toys. I buy every toy. I don't remember where it is. Because my husband said, he was afraid he was going to kick it. So I can't have it. I would keep it on the door jamb.
Yeah,
He made me take it down and now I don't know where it is. But it's really
that's
great.
okay.
There's a ton of them on.
Oh
But
yeah, I love
and
mine.
I love your plantar fasciitis story, and I'm really happy that you were able to recognize the whole kinetic chain because people don't. So many people have plantar fasciitis, and I just heard, speaking of podcasts, Julia Louis-Dreyfus's podcast.
Hmm.
She was interviewing Anne Lamott, the author,
Okay.
and they both had foot pain. And Anne Lamott was talking about she has recurring plantar fasciitis, and her doctor, her podiatrist, told her to get off her foot for a month, but she has to walk. So she said, I need to get my 10,000 steps a day. So it's hard for me to stay off my plantar fasciitis. And then Julia Louis-Dreyfus said, I have foot pain too. I have tendonitis. And I wanted to reach through and talk to them because I could tell that their doctors didn't help them understand that it's not just like some strange uh, piece of fascia that's acting up for no reason. There,
Right.
and how you can use the way you walk to, I mean, obviously, if something's acute, you need to stay off it and heal it. But then you can use the way you walk to change your patterns and not have recurring plantar fasciitis. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I can just imagine. I want to find somebody who knows Anne Lamott because she lives nearby me. I want to go down there and give her a free gait session so I can help her. She probably does some kind of, she probably had an injury. She's in her 70s now, I think. So a lifetime of patterns. And when people come into my studio, we start talking about it and they talk about when they sprained their ankle. One of
Yeah.
my clients who just had a hip replacement, he was talking about he sprained his ankle at the beginning of like a long trek in
Mm.
the wilderness. So he had to continue the trek on his badly sprained ankle. And he's in his 70s too. So throughout his life, that ankle led to bracing in his hip, which eventually led to a hip replacement. So I'm glad you were able to figure out whole body connection and feel better.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I'm a personal trainer. I'm trained to know about the kinetic chain, but it didn't click. Like, the saying the student is ready and the teacher appears, or maybe I
Yeah.
got that
Yeah.
backwards, but it's like it didn't click
Right.
until I was experiencing it. And
Yeah.
another thing that for me that didn't click in my learnings of the human body is the concept of adaptation and how people will burn as many calories as they can and eat as little as possible, and your body will adapt to it. And that's why people
Right.
plateau. And your first instinct is to go harder and eat less. And
Right.
actually, you're supposed to do the opposite and kind of like trick your body because we adapt so quickly.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that through experience of just
Yeah.
thrashing my body and not understanding why am I not losing weight?
I think we can also see it in
Um,
our students more easily.
mhm.
If you had a student come in and say, I have this problem, you could probably see more easily than you can see yourself, which is why we
Yeah,
need,
for sure.
even the trainers need trainers.
Oh yeah. Sometimes I feel like I'm a hypocrite because I'm not always practicing what I preach. And then I'm like, Katie, you know better. Um, but yeah, you see it more in your clients than in yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
Because of adaptation, because of compensatory patterns and the way our nervous system kind of finds center wherever we are. And then
yeah.
very interesting. It's
Yeah.
endlessly interesting. Will you
So
tell me
I'm
when you were talking about, or when the podcast is the beast within? I've been thinking about that, what that means. And so I'm just curious what that means to you.
so the beautiful beast within you is your true authentic self. And the idea is like my whole embodied coaching, like as a whole, is helping you remove the layers of programming and just things that the outside world puts on us to create what the outside world wants us to be rather than who we actually are. And so it's unveiling the beautiful beast within you. So the beautiful beast is your true authentic self.
And why did you use the word beast?
Because I think we are ferocious. We're beautiful, beastly creatures. And yeah, I don't have a lot to say on that word other than
I like it. I was
it's
just
a strong word in itself.
when I was thinking
So,
about it, it made me think about what it means to me is that we are animals.
mhm.
And we've taken so many of our animal movements out. Life gets more and more luxurious. The shoes are more padded, the chairs are more padded. Your
Mhm.
cars do everything for you. You don't have to look behind you in your car anymore. You don't ever have to get up and down off the ground because everything is delivered or so uh, to me, it's really important that we get on the floor, we roll around, we crawl, we walk
Yeah.
over uneven surfaces. We use our bodies as an animal, a beast. So
Yeah.
that's what it made me think of.
Nice. I love that. And we're all beautiful. Like our we spend so much time, not everybody, but a lot of us spend so much time hiding who we really are because we're worried about what the outside world is going to think about us.
Yeah,
And the truth is, like, let yourself be you, and whoever doesn't like it, they're just not your people.
right.
Go find the people that are looking for your beast.
Which is why I keep dancing in my kitchen, even though 7 years later, I'm in my 60s and, menopausal belly fat and it's it's harder to share that, even though I still do it privately. But I think it's really important that we don't, because especially with social media, you can watch all day nearly perfect people, not only nearly perfect, but then filtered to be even more nearly perfect,
Yeah.
dancing in a way that's very, choreographed uh, and it just the expectation that we're supposed to look and move and be a certain polished way is debilitating.
Yeah. That's the perfect word for it too.
Yeah.
It's I was actually editing an episode today and I was talking about how in my adventure of discovering who I am, a lot of the things that I've been put down for in my past are
Mm.
actually my superpowers. So
Yes.
like you're too sensitive. You're so weird. Like those
Mm.
kinds of things. Yep, I'm sensitive. I can feel
Yeah.
your pain.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not a bad thing at all.
Yeah.
And if you don't like who I am, go find somebody that you do like.
Right. Scroll on by.
Yeah. Bye, Felicia. But like I don't even want to say it in a negative way because like a lot of people are like, if you don't like me, you know what you can do. But it's like if you don't like me, go find somebody you like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's totally cool. I'm okay. I'm okay now with you not liking me. I used to want everybody to like me, and that's just not possible.
Well, I'm still working on it. I'm still a people pleaser, but
Hmm.
I mean, I think we all have a little bit of that.
Yeah. People pleaser, little perfectionism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only holds
I
us.
a friend of mine put up a post the other day that said something like, if you're into personal development to fix what's wrong with you, that's perfectionism. And I was like, oh, that's so good.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a hard left turn.
Okay.
And I would like to discuss if it's okay with you. You said you were in a couple of car accidents.
Hmm.
Um, can we talk about that story? Because this is a podcast of stories,
Yeah.
and I'm interested in all of the things like what happened, how it changed you physically, how it changed you mentally, emotionally, all of the above.
Well, I really look back at that time in my life and feel grateful because it led me to where I am now. I'm a Pilates teacher. I'm much more
Mhm.
in my body. I recognized all of the patterns that were hurting me. And I think now in my 60s, if I hadn't had those car accidents and changed not only the way I am with my physical body, uh, but the way that I was living, I would have knee replacement surgery and terrible neck pain and I mean, I would be much more limited than I am. So it
Hmm.
was, gosh, I'm not really good at dates and numbers. I was living in San Francisco and I was an actor who also had a corporate job. So I was driving around like a lunatic all the time. And the first car accident, I was going to work on the freeway and it was raining. And so there was like, I don't know if you can imagine the kind of rain where it's like clouding up. It's almost like
Hmm.
there's like white water coming up from the
Yeah.
freeway. And this woman started to come into my lane and then recognized that I was there and kind of started to hydroplane. And she actually came around in front of me. So we were like eye to eye
Mm.
and I hit her. And, the police officer who came was like, "You're fine, get off the road." So we drove away. My car was totaled, but I didn't have enough confidence to say, "I need some attention. I'm hurt." I didn't even know I was hurt. So I went to work and then I came home that night and my roommates were like, "What the hell happened to you?" So they took me to the doctor. I was an actor. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any health insurance. So I wore a brace for a while. And like I told you, I've got an appointment with that doctor. He was at UCSF.
Hmm.
He gave me almost no attention. He basically pushed my arm and said, "You're fine." So I did get a little settlement. I should have, I didn't even recognize that this would be a lifelong problem, that I should get some care because the
Yeah.
woman admitted that it was her fault and she had insurance. So I got a small settlement and I did get weekly massages and I had some chiropractic care. So that was better. And then I had
Yeah.
another car accident it was within 2 years. I was going to crazily driving to I was a voiceover actor, so I was racing through San Francisco to get to the studio, and I was in a one-way street. So I was in the left lane, and there was another car waiting for the light. It was a taxi. He jumped the light and hit me. The guy in the back seat got out and left, got another taxi or something. And the person driving the taxi didn't speak English, and the taxi cab company wouldn't speak to me. They kept pretending that they didn't understand English. So getting the
God.
insurance settlement was really difficult. They determined it was 51% my fault. I tried to be smarter this time, but anyway, it didn't work out very well so I didn't really get any insurance settlement because uh, both the taxi driver and the guy in the back seat, once they finally found them, kind of lied about what happened. Anyway, so through all of that, I found Pilates. And somebody that I knew had done some Pilates, and it was long ago, but before anybody knew what Pilates was. There was like one studio in San Francisco, and I didn't have any money, so I got a student teacher who actually was not the right fit for me. Talking about finding the right fit for you. She was super
Hmm.
soft spoken and very gentle, and there was
Mm.
a there were in the same studio there was a lesbian tattooed fire eating trainer with like crazy hair and tattoos. And I don't know why I didn't feel like I could say I want to train with her, but somehow I felt like I had to stay with this very soft spoken. I didn't
Mm.
I was like, "Could you speak up? I don't know what you're saying." But
Right.
anyway, eventually I started working with her. I still didn't have any money, but I like painted the floor of her apartment and I traded whatever I could to work with her, and she was awesome. And, and for a long time, I worked really hard and got very strong and still had the pain. And I didn't recognize that I could let go of that pain. And I'm super curious and I just keep finding new people to study with. And I eventually, after I had my two kids, my husband gave me a weekend away with one of my like rock star Pilates teachers who I wanted to study with. And I had this moment that I think of like a rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
In the Pilates studio, there are different kinds of spring-loaded equipment, and one is called the Cadillac. And you lie down, and there's a bar, and you roll your spine up and down by pushing on a spring-loaded bar. So I was doing this exercise with this woman who is she might be in her 90s now. So she was like a wise elder in the community. And then there were two other people co-leading the workshop, and all three of them had their hands on me and were talking to me in a gentle voice, telling me to drop and relax and release. And
Mm.
like somebody had their hands on this really gorgeous, tall man, Pilates teacher. I remember that. Had his hands on my knees and was kind of helping me sink my femurs into my hip sockets. Somebody had their hands on my shoulders and somebody had their hand on my sternum. So they were all talking me through this because my instinct was to lift and power and show how strong I was. But instead,
Yeah.
they had me dropping each piece of my spine down in order to roll up. And I had this, when I think back on it now, it was like coming through into a different world and seeing like, I mean, I get emotional talking about it. It was such a difference that somebody taught me to drop and relax. And then I felt my spine
Mm.
move naturally. And so anyway, that one of those people, I followed her around and did a whole year-long mentoring program. Wendy LeBlanc Arbuckle, who's this amazing Pilates elder. So I did a whole year-long mentoring program with her to help me not just teach it, but learn it in my body. Because there were so many
Yeah.
things that I felt like I couldn't do. I couldn't move my neck. I couldn't squat, my knees, and all this thing. And she just taught me how to let go of all of that tension. And I mean, that's what I try to pass on now with my classes and my programs, um, mostly in the Pilates studio, but then, transferred into life. How moment to moment you can recognize when you're in your car, when you're in the kitchen,
Yeah.
how can you recognize and allow the weight of your bones to drop into the earth, and then your spine just floats up and your breath opens up. And we can live like that, like animals, like
Yeah.
natural beasts. And we put so much constriction and tension, and we have to get to the yoga class. And
Yeah.
and it takes practice. It takes moment to moment awareness and practice and gentleness with yourself, because it's hard,
Yeah.
challenging to keep
Yeah.
starting over, recognizing how you're holding your breath,
Yeah.
where your head is while you're looking at your little device. And hmm,
I think about it like the concept of mastery. It's like mastery involves embodiment. Like you were saying, like not just learning how to teach it, but also learning how to do it and embody it. And I think that's what makes us that's what makes a better teacher, I think. Like
absolutely.
when we can so like for me example, I've been learning the concept of human behavior and why we do things the way we do and limiting beliefs and all this stuff, but it wasn't until I took a year-long embodiment course until it just soaked into my cells, and now uh, me being who I am, I want to ask questions like this is going a little deeper than I thought it would, but like when you were saying I don't know what part of me didn't want to tell the instructor that I wanted to work with this one, the
Right.
coach, the coach in me wanted to be like, let's pick that apart. Let's
Yeah.
and so like it's this whole idea of embodiment and mastery requires iteration and repeating and doing the thing over and over again until it just becomes who you are.
Yeah. And
So
trust, finding your own voice, trusting your own voice,
mm-hmm.
not letting people just tell you how it's going to be. That the doctor tells you you'll always be in pain.
Yeah,
Okay. Teacher says this is your teacher. That's not the right teacher for me. That's not the right
mm-hmm.
doctor for me. That's not the right
Exactly.
way I want to live my life.
Yeah. I love that. Whew, this is good stuff. Well, I have one more question for you.
Okay.
that I ask at the end of every episode, and that is, if you had one piece of advice that you could give to the world, what would it be?
Well, and what I've kind of distilled down from all these years of teaching is what is the tiny shift that will make the biggest difference? And I call that DARE, which stands for desire, figure out why it's important, action, what's the appropriate action today for you?
Mm-hmm.
R is for remember, how are you going to hook it into your daily life? And E is for explore. So like for me, I want to keep skiing into my 80s. I want to be able to get up and down off the ground and play with my grandchildren if I'm lucky enough to have them. My kids are in their early 20s. I want to I want to dance without my feet hurting and without my neck hurting. So those are my desires. And then the action for me, and this is like my basic action, my smallest shift that makes the biggest difference. And like we talked about the kinetic chain, for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's anchoring into the outside of my left heel because I had a bike accident when I was 10 and I set off this whole injury from my left big toe up to my right shoulder, interestingly. You
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that. So if I throughout my day notice that all my weight's on my right side, which is much stronger and I dominant, if I just anchor into the outside of my left heel, that's my action. That's the appropriate action for me today. It's very small, but it sets off a kinetic chain of ease from my right shoulder, which is where the pain was, all the way down to my left heel. Sometimes I think about having like a bag of rice in my right shoulder, cutting a little
Mm-hmm.
hole in the bottom and feeling the rice slide down my spine and down
Mm-hmm.
my left leg into my outer left heel. And then remember is hooking it into something you're already doing every day. For me, I recognize that I used to hurt my neck in the shower. It was what I called a zing. I'm always rushing because that's kind of I like to wait till the last minute and have be late. And then I get the energy to do stuff. And I would get in the shower and I would bring my hands up to wash my hair and I would get a zing and I would again all the time.
Yeah.
What I recognized is all my weight was on my right foot and my head was forward. So when I brought my hands up to wash my hair, it would my nervous system was trying to say something's wrong. So now I get in the shower, I anchor my left heel, I let my shoulder blades slide down my back, I keep my head on top. So that's my it happens naturally now, but it took a lot of awareness and hooking it into that moment. And then
Mm-hmm.
the E is for explore. Once it's a part of your life, now I can kind of play with my left heel and that connection when I'm dancing in my kitchen or when I'm on a walk. So it's like allowing that little shift to set off what's the next right shift?
Mm-hmm.
So that I call that dare, and that's like finding what is the weakest link? Because we tend to go to the gym and think if I could only be, my abs were tighter and but we're not paying attention to your inner thighs, your pelvic floor, the arch of your foot,
Yeah.
the length in your Achilles. What is the one tiny piece for you that you can find a moment of awareness in your everyday life and set off that kinetic chain?
I love it. Thank you. Beautiful beasts. Kristen Iuppenlatz signing off. Until next time.